Should the 49ers have drafted Justin Fields instead of Trey Lance? I asked this because Kyle Shanahan was on the record saying they never considered Justin Fields. It was down to Mac Jones and Trey Lance. I consider Justin Fields better than Mac. I don't think Mac Jones should have ever been in that consideration. He's not a leader. He's not mature. He's not that good. Anyway, but Justin Fields was never in consideration. And what made me think of this was in the press conference right after the season, when asked about the injuries, Kyle was real defensive. He was like, well, with Trey, he's a dual threat quarterback. He got injured running. What do you want from me? Well, I asked Kyle Shanahan about that in 2021, midseason. Like, hey, man, your offense isn't really clicking. You got Jimmy, you got Trey, you got two different styles of quarterbacks. Is that really the issue right here? And Kyle essentially said, I can't find it. He essentially said, look, I don't look at Trey Lance as a dual threat quarterback. The reason I like Trey Lance so much is he can add things, but I don't have to change my offense for him. That's what he said in October of 2021. Then we saw the offense in 2022 was totally different. So if that's what they wanted to do, if they wanted to have like a dual threat 11 on 11 Philadelphia Eagles style offense, should they have taken Justin Fields?
Justin Fields is the guy I thought they should have taken like right then and there, just because, again, like alluding to what I said earlier, I was so surprised that Lance was in the mix. I remember writing articles like saying like the quarterbacks that should go after is Justin Fields and Trey Lance. They're both, the physical gifts and all that such and that. Do not go after limitations of Mac Jones, yada yada yada. But the only reason I mentioned Trey Lance is because the Niners were linked to him, and I was like, really? They're gonna be the guy who only played like this many games? Like, to me, that's always my apprehension. Like, if I'm like looking at a prospect or something like that, that's the way I do it. I was like, you know what? He hasn't played enough. There's not enough, because I'm always a sample size guy, which is why I'm not going to write off Trey Lance even now. It's like, dude, he's only played like 2 games, 3 games. I don't even know if I count that. Let him get a stretch of games and let's see what's up then. I'm more like let's see more of it. Let's see more of an example. Let's see more. Let's get something that we can actually like say something off and not jump the gun or write him off or write anyone off. So yeah, I think they should have went Fields instead, because at least at this point, you would have had a dynamic runner. You had a guy you could have called running plays for, and someone who could have went off script. The passing still would have been an issue a little bit. I mean, you have the GM of the Bears talking about like, what does Justin Fields have to work on better than Austin? He's like, passing. Like, damn, that's a real great indictment on your quarterback right there, passing. But I think at that point it probably would have been better for him, because he would have had more weapons with the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan could have like had a lot of wide open throws that Justin Fields isn't necessarily getting. So yeah, I'm really surprised that he still didn't. It never really seemed too clear to me what was wrong with them, whether it was the processing or the staying in the pocket, because I think that's one thing, like, Fields doesn't stay in the pocket enough. But then again, is it because he's in Chicago and that offensive line is really like, so it's always like, I do think he should have been the guy. I do think so.
I just don't understand. I mean, the Niners have changed their story so much. Like, what they said at the time was, well, we don't want a dual threat quarterback. We want to develop Trey the right way. We think he can be a traditional quarterback. That's why we're not going to play him right away. And then year 2, they don't play him right. They don't play him in their traditional offense. They have him running basically the Chicago Bears offense or the Eagles offense, and he gets hurt. And then to justify it, he's like, well, he's a dual threat quarterback. That's how I have to use him. Man, that's not what you said when you took him. And if that's what you wanted, and now they're saying we really hoped he would be the next Jalen Hurts, but he's not the athlete we thought he'd be. Well, Justin Fields might be the best athlete in the league. I mean, that's the best athlete at quarterback I've ever seen. So if you were looking for an athlete to be Jalen Hurts, I mean, man, you got that wrong. You got that wrong. If there's someone who's going to be the next Jalen Hurts, it's Justin Fields. So if that's what they wanted, yeah, they should have taken Justin Fields. If they wanted to develop a traditional quarterback, then yeah, Trey Lance was the right guy. But they botched it, and now they're changing their tune. Like, actually, we didn't do it wrong. This is how you... What? You had to sit him a year to be a dual threat quarterback, huh? That's wild.
I always thought the idea of getting Trey Lance was like, we want him for the big arm, the processing, and he actually showed that the guy can work.
And we want to develop him the right way. That's running him up the middle. Here's the quote I got. This is October 2021. I don't think that's one reason I really like Trey. I don't think you have to do a totally different offense. I think Trey can add a lot to your offense, and you can do a lot of different things that you might not be able to do with a guy who doesn't have the athletic ability in terms of running like Trey does, but you don't have to do a whole new offense. And then he ran a whole new offense in 2022. Kyle, get your story straight.
Look, I think I'm so opposite of Kyle Shanahan, where I do actually have time and patience. The this is where I talk about the sample size thing. It's like, I think what will happen is they realize like, wow, like what Albert Reer said, he's not the runner that we thought he was going to be. We thought he could be a little bit better. Not necessarily that was the offense. I mean, not the runner. It was he's not as accurate as we thought he was as a passer, and they probably made that judgment after like 50 passes or something like that, rather than just like.
How do you misjudge someone's athleticism, man? There are tests for that. How do you misjudge that?
I meant more so like when they drafted him, like they probably thought he'd be a better passer, and once they realized that wasn't it, that's when they start to switching over to shoot. I don't have time to develop him with that. He's gonna have to learn to fly, and
or maybe they thought that year on the bench would develop him more as a passer. To your point, running scout team doesn't necessarily do that, and so they're like, "Damn, we wasted a year. What do we do? Okay, we'll run him."
Yeah, it's like, no, dude, because he's just like, that's stupid, because he's thinking about other things, like trying to give him his team the best look, because he's a team first guy. That's all Trey Lance has ever been this whole damn time.
Right. So okay, you need me to be Taylor Heineke this week? I'll be Taylor Heineke. You need me to be freaking Carson Wentz? It's like, okay, but what about the time?
That's a lot of rewiring going on in his head. A lot. And that's one thing as humans, it takes a lot to make change. Make growth, and it takes real concerted effort. And this guy
doesn't even have reps being himself yet, and now he has more reps being someone else. Yeah. So look, I'm not saying the Niners should have drafted Justin Fields, but now all of a sudden with the plan they're saying and the vision they have, all of a sudden it's like, well, okay, well that's Justin Fields. And if you wanted the athlete and you wanted 11 on 11, that's clearly Justin Fields. You told us you were developing this guy into be like John Elway 2.0. Hey man, your dad didn't run John Elway between the tackles. What's going on, dog? Right? John Elway's a scrambler. What are you doing? You know,
just have to wonder now. Actually, now I think about it, if the Niners are not making like the same mistake twice, they drafted Trey based off a huge projection, off a limited sample size. Now they're handing the keys to Brock Purdy, presumably after a small sample size.
It's the same with Jimmy.
This is the NFL, and he did it on a playoff roster all the way up to this NFC Championship game, which is why I always say like it's not the same as Jimmy. Jimmy did it on a team that no one cared about, overlooked, and they were doing it against poor opponents. Brock did it with all the weight and the pressure of a playoff team and actually was pushing, so that gets weighted way more better. Jimmy was way more fool's gold than Brock Purdy is. And at least Brock Purdy has the benefit of the doubt of he's cheaper. You don't have to sign him for a while. And of ideally that
also they were kicking hella field goals in those wins with Jimmy Garoppolo. They weren't scoring 35 points a game like they did in that one game against Jackson. It was that one game against Jacksonville that got Jimmy paid. Everyone thought Jacksonville was the truth that year. They were flashing the pan. The Niners eviscerated him. And everyone's like, wow, there you go. And that people were really saying like, you know, if the Niners were in the playoffs, they would run the table. Like, no. They wouldn't, but they said that.
Jimmy Garoppolo that year as a person in the desert with water syndrome. I got to figure out a way to say that. It's like Niner fans went years, especially that season, but for years of lacking without a good quarterback. You know, pretty much since 2013 when Cap really started to decline, and it's like, man, I need anything.
But that's Brock right now.
So you get Brock right now. Small little. We're not even talking good clean water, Brita. We're talking Arrowhead, disgusting water that Niner fans got, which is Jimmy Garoppolo. They drank it and realized, like, this is actually not bad. And it's like, no, that water is bad. You've just been in the desert for so long and you're parched, so that's why you think this is good. You're fool's gold. You're seeing a mirage right now with Jimmy, and that's exactly what he was. He was a mirage. He wasn't that great of a quarterback. He wasn't a good quarterback. Yeah, stretches, sure, but that's not enough.
I can't wait to see where he goes next. Monster Toure says Trey was the right pick. Kyle was the wrong coach. Yikes. Yep. They just a terrible fit, man. Just a terrible fit.
It's funny that you say that because this is the team where a young quarterback should thrive in.
Yeah, you know, but Kyle's not a quarterback developer.
Head coach, plenty of weapons. Like this was the case I was making of. I think all of us were making. Me and you about 2021. Start him now because it's like no quarterback's gone to the playoffs or Super Bowl, whatever. It's like yeah, but no quarterback's been drafted top 5 to a team who was playoff oriented. The reason why the 49ers were top 5 in the first place is 80% of the team was on the shelf.
Monster Toure says, can't wait for Cohn. Was going to talk about this. I was going to do one today at noon if you're around. Let's do one today at noon, which means in an hour and 15. Official BNA Music 88 says, Purdy got a real offense. Trey got decoy Samuel. Yep.